Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This is a very important issue. In 1975, when the Aboriginal Heritage Act was drafted, Aboriginal heritage was about stones, bones and middens, what the Act previously called relics. But now we understand that their heritage is so much richer than that. It is in songlines, in oral histories, in relationships to land and water, in sacred places, intangible but no less real. The heritage is in landscape shaped by thousands of generations of Aboriginal care and custodianship. The buttongrass plains, the open forest hills, the copses, all cultivated by highly sophisticated cultural burning practices, or fire stick farming as it is now known, to enhance the land and the wildlife that depended on it. A heritage of over 40,000 years. Our Aboriginal cultural heritage tells an extraordinary tale of ingenuity, resilience and connection to nature. Yet we continue to allow the desecration and destruction of that heritage and culture. For Aboriginal people, this continued experience of cultural destruction is a living reminder of their shameful treatment since the settlement of Tasmania by Europeans, their dispossession, their attempted extermination, a reminder of policies seemingly designed to erase them from memory. For too long we have failed to give Aboriginal people the respect, recognition and authority they deserve over their rich cultural heritage. Today's motion seeks to change that. It calls on the government to stop delaying and finally bring forward its long-promised legislation to reform the Aboriginal Heritage Act. As far back as the 1990s, the Aboriginal Heritage Act was roundly condemned by the Aboriginal community as being offensive and completely inadequate. In 2017, some important changes were made, but the failure to properly modernise the Act leaves Tasmania with the ignoble distinction of having the most out-of-date Aboriginal Heritage Act in the country. Over the past 25 years, all other states and territories have introduced completely new laws. Tasmania's Act is now 50 years old. In 2019, the government commenced a comprehensive review of the Act. It produced a detailed report in March 2021 with a number of findings focused on the key deficiencies of the current Act. To summarise some of those findings, the Act gives insufficient power to Aboriginal communities in decision-making. The Act largely delegates to government or others the control over a heritage with only advice or consultation in many cases, rather than actual consent, veto or the right to refuse projects that threaten cultural heritage. And consultation which tends to occur after a decision has already been made to proceed with the development. Deputy Speaker, the Act lacks clarity, enforceability and effective mechanisms of protection, especially for unknown or undiscovered sites. For living heritage, for cultural landscapes where significance arises in relationships and not just in discrete artefacts or remains. The government's review report was tabled in Parliament over 4 years ago, incidentally around the same time as the Pathway to Truth-Telling and Treaty report, a report that specifically recommended the reform of the Aboriginal Heritage Act as a matter of urgency. Since then, we have seen consultation after consultation, promise after promise, but no action. Almost a year after receiving approximately 40 public submissions in response to the review report, the then Minister for Aboriginal Affairs told this Parliament in March 2023, the government is continuing a conversation with Aboriginal people and interested stakeholders to ensure their views are understood and taken into account as we prepare for our drafting of an exposure bill. The draft exposure bill will go out for consultation this year ahead of its introduction to Parliament. Honourable Deputy Speaker, in December 2023, the then Minister put out an update to provide a high-level overview of the proposed new Act and shifted the commitment to releasing an exposure bill back to 2024. Almost 2 years later, there is no exposure bill, no updates from the government, just silence, leaving the Aboriginal community to wonder if this government has given up on reforming the Aboriginal Heritage Act, consigned it to the too-hard basket, just as it did with the treaty process. Now I want to talk about the consequences of our weak Aboriginal heritage laws. There are sadly countless examples I could refer to, but I'm going to talk about two of the most recent examples. Robbins Island, a place that is very special to me. a place that was the traditional home of the Papalona people and a sacred gathering place. Excuse me for a moment. For the 9 to 12 tribes of the northwest that are no longer with us. For thousands of years, these tribes came together on Robbins Island. Excuse me for a minute.
There's tissues in front of you there, Mr. Garland. Feel free.
For thousands of years, these tribes came together on Robbins Island to exchange resources, strengthen kinship ties and conduct ceremonies under the full moon. These gatherings were central to maintaining the cultural and spiritual fabric. The intermarriages that took place there ensured survival, unity and cohesion across generations. The island was renowned for its beautiful seafood, seals, mutton birds, which sustains its inhabitants for millennia. Its bull kelp was used for making water carriers and various reeds, and grasses for making baskets and ropes. Its tiny little mariner shells, which our women gathered, were strung together to make traditional shell necklaces. The people of Robbins Island were part of the group involved in the Cape Grim massacre, where they were run off the cliffs to their deaths, and its people were some of the last to be rounded up and removed to Flinders Island. The island's significance is further underscored by its connection to Tasmania, an absolute hero, a local hero, born on Robbins Island, 1812. A man remembered for his courage and leadership. Tasmania continues to embody the resilience of our people, a man whose name has been recognised by a memorial in Melbourne, but not in his home state. His story, alongside the linguistic record of the word Tawe, both to go and Robbins Island, cements the island's central place in the identity of the Northwest. The Tasmanian Aboriginal Centre has called Robbins Island one of the most culturally significant landscapes in Tasmania. From the time it was first announced over a decade ago, Aboriginal groups have been united in the opposition to a wind farm development that will see 100 giant wind turbines installed and the island turned into an industrial wasteland. Earlier this year, Rochelle Goodwin from the Circular Head Aboriginal Corporation appeared before the Energy Committee. She was asked about the engagement of the developer, ASIN, with the Aboriginal community. Her evidence was certainly nothing since probably early 2021, ultimately. CHAC has said, we do not agree with this particular development due to the intangible or tangible heritage. Moving on from that, essentially we didn't hear anything else from that. We've continued to display our objections alongside many other Aboriginal communities as well. Since then, we've heard crickets, essentially. Ms Goodwin also gave evidence about how she believes the consultation should take place. I believe that a certain set of strategies or guidelines should be put in place for proponents to go through and to achieve with Aboriginal community in order to move forward. That first step of this consultation, what tangible heritage is there? How can it be avoided? Then what intangible heritage is there? Okay, this is probably not the right space. What space is? How can we work together to find that space? More of a relationship than, okay, this is what we're suggesting, do you agree? As part of the development application, the multinational developer ASIN paid consultants to do a heritage survey on the island. This survey has been labelled by the TAC as superficial, covering only a fraction of the island. Superficial as it was, it still uncovered 24 new Aboriginal heritage sites, including seal hide sites, artefact scatters, middens and a potential rock shelter, suggesting that a full methodical survey would reveal much more. Honourable Deputy Speaker, during an appeal over the development approval of this wind farm, TASCAT heard unchallenged evidence about Robbins Island's Aboriginal cultural heritage. The tribunal found that the island had significant Aboriginal heritage, describing it as rich and stirring Indigenous history. In their letter to the Federal Environment Minister, the TAC said the planned development not only desecrates the physical landscape, but damages the cultural and spiritual memory of our people. The recent decision by the Federal Environment Minister to approve the wind farm development has been roundly condemned by the Aboriginal community. The TAC said in a media statement after the decision, The Minister's decision highlights the failure of Australian law to protect Aboriginal heritage. Until there are enforceable national standards, projects like this will keep destroying the places that define who we are. The Aboriginal community is renewing its call for Politica to be permanently protected through inclusion on the National Heritage List and for genuine partnership with Aboriginal people in all decisions affecting their lands. CHAC released a statement saying, Robbins Island is not a place defined only by scattered physical heritage sites. It is an entire living cultural landscape of immense significance to Aboriginal people. And I might add, it was the only place where the tribes of the Northwest converged every October on the full moon. That was their only meeting place. And to them, it was the most important place. We have consistently stated that current heritage legislation does not and cannot protect sites of this magnitude. Despite countless representations over many years from our community and other communities across Tasmania, our voices have again been dismissed. This decision sends a clear and painful message. Our heritage and our rights are not seen as worth protecting. Once again, the interests of money and industry have been prioritised over cultural preservation and our voices are silenced. And it leaves us to grieve for the places that should have been protected for generations to come. CHAC have also sent a letter to the Premier in which they say that if the Aboriginal Heritage Act cannot safeguard a site as important as Robbins Island, then it cannot be said to be fit for purpose. I wish to table these two letters from CHAC and TAC to put them on the public record. I circulated them along with my motion on Monday to all the parties and to my fellow independents.
Mr Garland, I'll just ask you to formally seek leave to table those letters.
I formally seek leave to table these two letters.
Leave granted. Thank you.
Now, I want to turn to another example of Aboriginal heritage being cast aside in favour of development in Tasmania, the stadium at Macquarie Point. In particular, I want to refer to the final report of the TPC and quote some of the observations made by the panel in its final report released last week as part of the POS process. The panel noted the Aboriginal Heritage Assessment Report found the development site to have traditional, spiritual and special values that were considered to be of a very high level of significance, and historic and scientific values of the place rated as having a high level of significance. The panel considered that it is very likely the project will have significant negative effects on Aboriginal heritage materials, particularly the Northern Access Road. The panel considers consultation with the Aboriginal community as being wholly insufficient to meaningfully understand Aboriginal connections to place and landscape and associated values. The panel also stated that the proponents' constrained approach to consultation and its imposed time limitations demonstrate that genuine consultation with the Tasmanian Aboriginal community has not been a priority for the project, nor has it occurred. No evidence has been provided that persuades the panel that the project properly acknowledges, respects, reflects or celebrates Aboriginal cultural associations and values. In the words of Adjunct Associate Professor Daphne Habibis, the proponents' engagement with the Tasmanian Aboriginal community about the project has been wholly inadequate. Professor Greg Lehman told the panel the proponent has sought to generate a range of superficial outcomes to create an appearance of Aboriginal participation in the stadium project through a rushed process with little transparency. Professor Lehman also observed the stark contrast between the high level of Aboriginal participation and engagement over 7 years for the plans for the Macquarie Point site, when a reconciliation and cultural centre were part of the plans, compared to after the stadium was announced, he concluded. The current objective of placing an AFL stadium at Macquarie Point offers minimal scope for a meaningful realisation of need by Aboriginal people and the broader community for reconciliation and healing, or for the celebration of Tasmanian Aboriginal cultural resilience and vitality in the face of genocidal colonial violence. Nala Mansell told the panel that the Macquarie Point site was part of a living Aboriginal cultural landscape that holds generations of stories, history and trauma. It's one of the few remaining spaces in this capital city where a real act of restitution could take place. Yet the government chose to elevate the interests of perhaps one of the most powerful corporations in the country, the AFL, above the interests of Aboriginal Tasmanians, again sending a clear message that their heritage is an afterthought, just as it has done on Robbins Island. In both instances, sites were selected by proponent developers long before Aboriginal people were engaged, rendering the subsequent consultation completely superficial. In conclusions, so what are the Aboriginals to make of this ongoing marginalisation, the destruction of their cultural heritage? I suggest that it sends a clear message that Aboriginal heritage is expendable, that identity, story and culture can be bulldozed in the name of development. To quote from The First Tasmanians, A Deep History, a book by Aboriginal historian Shane Breen, published only a few weeks ago, cultural heritage protection is one area where the government impulse to obstruct Aboriginal aspirations lingers. This has to change, and it can only change by giving decision-making power to the Aboriginal community, self-determination, by giving them the power to protect and preserve what is sacred to them, to preserve their identity and to promote and celebrate with them this wonderful cultural heritage. Tasmania's shameful history of its treatment of Aboriginal people should provide a clear moral imperative for us to be leading the nation in a journey towards Aboriginal reconciliation, not shamefully languishing at the back. For supporting this motion today, you can send a clear message to the Aboriginal community of Tasmania. We hear you, we respect you, and we will act to protect what should never be lost. Now, I'd just like to add, every morning we pay homage to the Aboriginal community in this place, and then we go off and ignore and not attend to those very things. Just a simple measure to update an act to give the proper protection to the community. You would have heard Dwayne Everett-Smith talk last year and also this year about what it means to Aboriginal people. When you attack their culture, the place that they hold dear, you're not only sticking the boot into that, you're sticking it into them, and that's how they feel. And until we address that, we will remain divided, and this is so important that we take this forward for the benefit of not only the Aboriginal community, but all of us. You look at Robbins Island, one simple decision, you know, a lie begets a lie. Well, one bad decision creates a whole lot of bad outcomes. They have to put a causeway bridge across there, which will impact the channel. They'll be blasting, they'll be putting a quarry site there. If you've ever been near birds, migratory birds especially, you make them the smallest of noise, they're gone. They'll be blasting there for 6 to 8 years. This is absolutely atrocious. So thank you for... Yeah.